Welcome. So, why are we here? And only you can answer that question. So, only you can answer the question as to why you're here. And it might seem trivial, it might seem irrelevant, but actually, if you really look sincerely, most likely what you'll recognize is that you don't know, and that's uncomfortable not to know. It's uncomfortable, awkward, and that just beneath the surface, there's this whole stew of everything that you've tried to avoid: the anger, disappointment, sadness, grief, loss, frustration, dullness, depression, hopelessness, pointlessness, and so forth. Need I go on? Hopefully you can look for yourself. As always, you need to look for yourself. So look right now and see, why are you here? And you have to see. It's so important. If you don't see, then you're really wasting your time, because what if, at least consider the possibility that this life is precious, that it's a great mystery. It's very precious. You don't know. So rather than assume that it's not, rather than assume that it's just something to get through, or that it's a punishment, or that it's pointless or meaningless or empty, or any of the other kinds of things that we assume, the ways we take this life for granted. Instead, what if you were to just assume, because why not, that it's precious? And then start to look with sincerity and see, right now, why am I here? What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? Moment to moment, what am I doing? What are the excuses that I make? The excuses that allow me to waste this life, to squander this life, this precious life. Sorry to lay a trip on you. But the good news is it's not too late right now, in this moment. See, if it brings up, if that kind of notion provokes in you even further despair, even a sense of regret and remorse and self-hatred and all these things. Again, remember I said, you just look and it's there brewing beneath the surface. It's not far ever. All this self-hatred, self-contempt, self-disdain, self-shame. So if it provokes that, then The good news is right in this moment, right now, something new, something truly new, something truly fresh, something really alive is possible. And that it's so close. You don't need to go doing anything for it or searching for it. In fact, all of the activity and the searching for it and all of the striving and trying and all of that, it's too much. It actually, all of that unnecessary activity and unnecessary strain, not literally, but it's as if it slightly pushes us off the mark. And as soon as we relax, as soon as we just stop, we find ourselves right here on the mark right now. So look to see, why are you here? Why? Ask yourself this sincerely. Why am I here? What am I hoping for? What am I doing? Why am I here in this moment, in this meeting, in this life? And you have to see that the answer, see there, now assume that there is an answer. So don't let yourself off the hook, as it were, because you say, well, there's no answer to this. Assume there is an answer, but just that the answer is not going to be found in the mind. So you have to keep yourself honest. You have to keep looking, because you see what happens every time we find any excuse, any justification. We say, oh, I'm out of here. I don't want to be on the mark. It's very uncomfortable here. I gotta, what do I do? Oh yeah, I squirm. Oh yeah, I strain. Oh yeah, I fret. Oh yeah, I worry. Oh yeah, I think about that. Oh yeah, I blame. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All of that just to get ourselves off the mark so we don't have to face this discomfort. But finally, if you don't let yourself off the hook, if you stay here and you assume that there is an answer, there is an answer. So you're not letting yourself off the hook by saying there is no answer. So therefore I can just zone out and I can think about whatever I want to think about and do whatever I want to do right now. No, there is an answer, and it's not to be found in the mind. It's too subtle. It's too simple for the mind. The mind can only deal in complexity, but this is too simple. So there is an answer, and it's found here. And the only way to find it is to look. And as you look, notice what's revealed. So how do you notice what's revealed? You just attend lightly to whatever is here and notice all of the assumptions that surface. The assumptions like, I don't know how to do this. I can't do it. It's too hard. I'll do it later. When I understand, then I'll do it. It's too uncomfortable, too difficult. I'm not able. I'm not capable. I'm not smart enough. I'm not strong enough. All of the, I mean, on and on and on. You know, there's so many possibilities, but just watch for them. Just see, they're just happening. All the excuses, I'm not there yet, I can't do it, I can't see, I can't understand. And just see that they're all excuses. So just see the excuses. Finally, rather than falling for the excuses, just see them. And you don't have to get angry with them either. The anger is just another excuse. So you see what happens. These, for each of us, it's a little different. There's some, for some of us, we say, oh, anger, whatever, I'm fine with anger. But for somebody else, they say anger, oh, no, 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 not anger. So for some people, anger is the thing that they get hung up on, and they're just fighting and struggling and avoiding anger. They're just desperately, their whole life just trying anything other than anger, because anger is what's here. Say, no, 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 no. I'll do anything, anything, anything. Please, God, what do I have to do? And you know the answer to that. Actually, you know the answer to that because it's what you've been doing. So you see, whether it's anger or sadness or depression or frustration or arrogance or pride or grief or anything else. You just notice that for you, that, and it could be a combination. So don't go intellectually trying to identify it. Just notice whatever it is that's here. Whatever it is that has you squirming, whatever it is that has you desperately looking, where is it? Where is it? That's the thing. And it's right here. So seems like such a simple thing to start with. Why am I here? And don't know the answer. You don't even, if you tell the truth, you don't even understand the question. How could you? How could you understand the question? Because we think that this is the game we play. If I understand the question, then I understand the answer. If I understand the answer, then I'm okay. But then you see the lie we keep telling ourselves, that whole thing. And then we say, I do understand the question. I do understand the answer. Therefore, I must be okay. But I'm not okay. Back around again. Okay, so what is it? What is the question? Okay, now I understand the question. What is the answer? Oh, now I understand the answer. I must be okay now. No, I'm not okay. Round again. What's the question? Now I know the question. What's the answer? Now I know the answer. I must be okay. No, I'm not okay. You see how this happens? We think, oh, it must be because I don't have, I don't get enough respect. Well, I'll just get enough respect. Get enough respect. I'm not okay. Must be because I don't have enough money. Well, I have enough money. That's not working either. I'm not okay. Must be because of my body. Once my body is okay, then once my body is the way I want it to be, then okay, my body's the way I want it to be. I must be okay. No, I'm not okay. Must be, and it goes on and on and on and on and on, round and round and round. But all of it is to avoid what's here, which is that I don't know. I don't understand. I'm a fraud. I'm afraid. So all of this comes if we just, any entry point will do, you see. It doesn't have to be some magical, perfect one. Anyone that's sincere, if we just look, because any starting point, any question, any invitation, some may be more skillful than others, but any of them taken sincerely, it points us directly to this discovery, which is closer in and closer in and closer in. And the closer in we get, the more uncomfortable we feel. So if you don't experience that discomfort, well, one of two possibilities. One possibility is you've gone all the way. You're all the way in, and here you realize, actually, all along, the truth of who I am is beyond comfort and discomfort, beyond okay and not okay. So that's a possibility. But that, if you have doubt about that, then that is not what's happening. So if there's doubt, or if you're just sure that, no, I'm not, that's not what's happening, then what's going on is there's still an avoidance, just an avoidance of this. obvious fact that you don't know, you don't understand, you haven't got the first clue, you're afraid, you're alone, and you're a fraud amongst frauds. Isn't that true? I mean, come on. Do you know anybody who's not really fraudulent most of the time, at least? Pretending like they know, pretending like it's okay, pretending like they've got it figured out, pretending like they've got it held together, pretending like they've got a clue when nobody has a clue. So this is maybe it's challenging, maybe it's challenging. Sometimes people perceive it as challenging. Sometimes they say, oh, it's so negative. But if we're not willing to reset, if we're not willing to go all the way back to zero, so to speak, if we're not willing to relinquish everything, if we're not willing to finally give up all the defenses, all of the pretenses, all of the armor, all of the baggage, then what are we hoping we're going to accomplish? If we're not willing to give all that up, then all we're going to do is reconstruct some variation on the same theme, which is going to be a theme of struggle, a theme of lack, a theme of pain, avoidance, distress, and discomfort, because fundamentally the basis of all of that is going to be a lie. And it's a lie that we have to shoulder because life itself is not going to actually support a lie. The nature of life itself is complete transparency. Here it is. It's nothing's hidden. It's completely transparent. And you might say, oh no, it seems totally obscure. I can't understand it at all. I understand that. But that's a mistake to think that life is not transparent. Life is completely transparent. It's only because you're obscuring it by this self-deceit. So it's only when we're finally willing to let go of all of that, willing to set that down, willing to tell the truth about it and see it, that there's really a possibility, a sincere possibility, a genuine possibility of something fresh and new and honest and aligned. And you think about how hard it is, and you don't have to actually think about it. You can just feel into it because it's what's been going on your whole life. You can actually feel what that is to be going against nature. You know, I mean, here's nature. Do you see that? That all of this is nature. It's all nature. From the beating of the heart and your pinky fingernail and your eyelash to your home, your finances, your thoughts, the sun, the entire universe, and beyond that even. So that's enormous. Much, and if you tell the truth, as much, I mean, we can't even begin. We can't even begin to understand that, much less control it. We can manipulate a great deal. And the truth is, we're actually able to manipulate uh, very, very profound level, beyond even our present understanding, because we're actually, what we're witness to is our own creation. So all of this is our own manipulation, but fundamentally, the nature itself, what it is that allows for that manipulation in the first place, the essence that's there, that's beyond us. You see, what, like, it's like you can be given modeling clay, and you can use that modeling clay and make any number of things, fantastic things, big things, small things, intricate things, simple things, and so forth. But the clay itself, can you create that? And so the actual substance of life, the life itself, we didn't create that. So it's beyond us. It's bigger than us. It's unthinkable, actually. It's beyond the mind. So it is such a relief to finally acknowledge that, and to finally be willing to surrender all of, as I say, the defenses and the pretenses. So in this moment, perhaps we can just tell the truth. Perhaps you can tell the truth, just looking for yourself. And remember, all of this has to be a lived inquiry presently. It's not a theory. It does no good at all as a theory. You'd be better off reading fairy tales, sincerely. They would, in all sincerity, fairy tales would be much more instructive to you about how to live your life successfully than this would be. But this is, if taken, if received and actually lived presently, if you actually look for yourself sincerely right now, then this takes you back to zero. And as I've said, going back to zero finally is to be in alignment. So as I was saying, you can feel what it is to be out of alignment, to be fighting against the current your whole life. And you're in this stream, this river, in which you're surrounded by all of these others who are also fighting against the current. And so, and it's like the emperor's new clothes. We all know I'm not going to win. We all know that. Actually, in our heart of hearts, we know that. But when we look at one another, we don't acknowledge that, do we? We say, I'm winning. How about you? And the other one says, oh, me too, I'm winning. Getting ahead. But we know that nature itself is bigger than us, that current is bigger than us, that ultimately it takes us. And we see that. Of course, we try to hide it, hide the hide the people away in the institutions so that we don't have to face it. But actually, we all know, where do the people go? We know they die. And when they die, what do they take with them? Do they take all of these things with them, the good and the bad? Not what we think of as that person, at least. That person is gone. All of the pretense and defense is gone, because that was only ever a facade. So the invitation now is finally, just in this moment, drop all of it. That's why, again, we say, okay, I get it. People say it's negative, and yes, it's not a, it does, on the surface, it's not hopeful at all. On the surface, the invitation is the opposite of what we're often presented as something hopeful. But you see, what we're often presented with is somebody swimming upstream saying, I'm getting ahead. And actually, we all know they're not. We all know nobody's getting ahead. Nobody's getting ahead. There's no way. There's no ahead. There's just the truth and the lie. And if we're telling the lie, we're facing against nature and we're struggling against nature and we're in pain and suffering all the while. And doesn't that describe you? Of course it does. I mean, to be human, we have that experience. Anybody who says, I'm beyond that, they're lying to you, actually. So don't believe it. Does that mean that there's not another possibility, a radical other possibility? No, 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 no. I mean, this invitation is an invitation to a radical other possibility, and it is a possibility of freedom, for sure. I promise you that. But it's not about, it's not our understanding of freedom. It's the truth of freedom. It's greater than our understanding of freedom, but we can't receive it as long as we're holding on to our idea, which is why we have to reset to zero. It's why we have to abandon everything. It's why we have to finally be willing to surrender all of that struggle and effort. Because if we're fighting, as we are fighting, struggling against nature upstream, we've, because of our orientation, because of this posture of fighting upstream and the false notion that this is good and desirable and necessary and essential for my survival, we cannot actually receive the gift of nature, the alignment of nature, the oneness of nature, if we continue with that orientation. We have to be willing to surrender and to be turned around so that we can receive, so that we can see in this present moment now, truthfully, and receive this moment rather than deny it or fight against it. So this resetting to zero, this surrender, this abandoning of the false is terrifying, because we were so identified with the struggle. And so, of course, when the struggle ends, it's done. Not to say that we can't and won't return to it from time to time. We will. But in that instant, the struggle is done. And if the struggle returns, it's not the same struggle. That's the lie that we tell ourselves, is that it's one struggle. But actually, in the instant of the surrender of the struggle, what's revealed is that there is no independent struggle. What there is actually independently is this truth, and that in this truth, what arises from time to time is the appearance of a struggle. That struggle is never the same struggle. It's always a different struggle. It's always uniquely arising in this moment. But the lie is that there's something that is that struggle, and we identify as that. So in this moment, when we have the courage to surrender, to tell the truth, to look and see that I can't get anywhere, that I'm not getting ahead, that I won't get ahead, that the only thing that's certain is my failure, then there is a kind of death. What dies? Not you. But what you have identified as, what I have identified as, that dies now. And the invitation is to allow that now. That's this resetting to zero. That's to allow yourself to be aligned with nature, to be one with nature, to receive that gift of life that is nature now. And it's not hard. It's the easiest thing. What's hard is the to continue to lie down the habits of defense, resistance that keep coming up. Because you see, back to where we started, any question, any entry point will do, so long as you look with sincerity. So actually the ultimate entry point is just this now, whatever's arising now. You might call it boredom or frustration or discouragement or tiredness or agitation or any number of other things, but it's just this, whatever is happening now. And just to receive this now is the entry point. And and you notice what's actually being surrendered in this moment when you look sincerely. What's actually being surrendered is the habit of struggle, the habit of fighting, the habit of separating, the habit of turning, avoiding. And it's just received fully now. And that experience of the receiving, you may perceive so many ways. And so you may perceive it as intense, you may perceive it as uncomfortable, you may perceive it as a vibration, you may perceive it as smooth, you may perceive it as blissful, you may perceive it as empty, you may perceive it as agitation. But however you perceive it, that perception is actually just more what's happening is that you are witness to the conditioning, you're witness to your own perception. So before it's like the perception was projected and you turned to see the projection and you were lost in that. Now you're aligned with nature and just receiving that perception consciously. There's no time here to grasp that with the mind, so don't try. It's a waste of time. You don't have to. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to solve it. You don't have to do anything with it. Actually, the very best thing is just receive, just open, just allow. So now several things are occurring, assuming that you're following along. So in this allowing, this surrender, you drop the defenses, you drop the pretenses, and you are turned to align with nature, and you're receiving your own conditioning, witnessing your own conditioning so that it is resolved here and now without you having to do anything. So just allow. It's very, very, very powerful. More powerful than any other technique, actually. So any other technique, there are other techniques that work, obviously. And by work, I mean that can effectively bring about release and healing and smoothing of experience and so forth. But none of them is even remotely as direct and powerful as this, because all of the others are indirect. This is allowing, it's like the wave is resolving into the ocean. So the wave is the conditioning, the ocean is this aliveness, the nature that you are now aligned with. And in this alignment, there's no difference between you and it. You are this nature. So when you wrongly perceive yourself as being separate, of course, then all of the conditioning seems terrifying because you don't have the capacity to hold that. But here in this moment of surrender, of letting go, of just receiving, in this alignment with nature, you are that vastness, you are that infinite oneness. You are the fundamental essence of all that is. You're the ocean. And so this conditioning resolves into you without any problem. You notice that. Notice that however, whatever the perception is, if it seems like it's intense or it's big or it's scary or it's uncomfortable or it's this or that or whatever, or blissful or ecstatic or whatever it is in this moment right now, in this simply receiving, just notice, does it actually, so there's the perception, but in the allowing of that, is there any change or any increase or decrease, augmentation or diminution of this vastness of nature itself? So if you can start to notice yourself metaphorically as the ocean here, this vastness, you just notice there's an openness. You just open to the openness within yourself as yourself. You just open to that. And then whatever experience, whatever perception occurs, don't latch onto it. Don't defend. Don't try to understand it. Don't sort it. Don't categorize it. Don't do anything with it. Just allow it. And then tell the truth. Is this openness altered? So now, as I say, this is a reset to zero. Hopefully it's clear what I mean by that, but just in case it's not, I don't know how to describe it actually. It's like it's just to be, it's like being held in the cosmic mother's arms. It's, you know, she's doing all of this activity. She's doing all these things. She's going here and there. She's walking, running, jumping, bending over, carrying, lifting, throwing. She's doing all of these things. There are loud sounds, soft sounds, bright lights, all kinds of activity occurring, but you're held here. And there's a knowing, there's just this knowing of that being held. It's so certain. It's just it's not even doubtable. And you notice that in order to really receive that, you have to be soft. You have to surrender to that. Because if you don't, then it's just an unpleasant experience. So this is the first step. Now, you could, this is the essential step. Everything else necessarily comes from this. So if you skip this, you miss it all. So it's essential. There's no going around it. If you don't, if if you skip this step, you don't know who you are. You don't know what your nature is. You don't, you get caught up in the mind. You're fearful, constantly on guard, can't let go. Everything's a struggle. You're back to the familiar position of struggling upstream. And you look around and you're looking for reassurance, and you find others who reassure you, I'm getting ahead. I'm getting ahead. Look at us. We're all getting ahead. Look at our big group getting ahead here. Come join our big group of getting ahead. But you'll notice, as you've always noticed with that if you go back to that, then what's always here eating away at you is this insecurity, discomfort, fear, anxiety, because there's actually, you know that you're out of alignment, you know that you're lying, you know that it's not true, you know that the one thing that's certain is your failure. So again, the invitation is just be willing to fail. Surrender all of it right now. And then just notice right now that you're taken care of. That you're taken care of so profoundly that you don't even have to have a sense of yourself any longer. Because you see, paradoxically, when we are working hard to defend ourselves, protect ourselves, we're generating that insecurity and anxiety. It's a feedback system. When you assume that posture of defensiveness and fear and anxiety, that produces the very experience that confirms that that life is insecure, dangerous, which is a vicious cycle. But when you surrender that, when you finally are willing just to abandon that, fail, and there is a sense of a kind of death, but it's not the death of you, it's just the death of the false. Because this is clear in this moment right now. When you just drop all of that for one instant, that here you remain, even though the idea of yourself is not here. The idea of yourself was always false. That had to be defended. But here, the truth of you is this wide openness, this perfect alignment and surrender. So what this does is it creates a virtuous cycle, because there's a feedback loop now where, as you surrender physiologically, energetically, at all of these levels, starts to feed back in that I'm okay. So now there's the growing sense of security, safety, being held. You can't think your way to this, because all of the thinking is divisive and feeds into the insecurity. It grows the tension. But in this surrender, this reset to zero, the direct revelation is I'm still here. So I surrender all of this now. In this instant, it's a living, flowing surrender. It's not like you do it once. It's now. It's alive. It's an ongoing surrender. It's a living experience in which, as I say, in the surrender, what happens is you are receiving all of your conditioning. Instead of fighting against it, you're receiving it. So it's being resolved. In that resolution, there's a polarization. As long as it's avoided, as long as there's a struggle, there's light and dark, good and bad, me and not me. And so then there's how I identify, and then there's everything else, and everything else is a threat to that. So I'm fighting, struggling, avoiding. But in this moment of surrender, that collapses. And because it's received, it's not fought against, it's not denied, it's not rejected. There's no war going on. It's resolved here and now. So the direct revelation is beyond the polarization, beyond the duality, beyond myself and other, beyond good and bad. Here and now is this okayness, this aliveness, this vastness. So this is step one, and this is a gift. This is very rare. So take a moment to acknowledge that, because otherwise what happens is we trivialize it and dismiss it and go right back into suffering needlessly, because we've such a precious gift. I mean, really, I mean that sincerely. And I can say that I say everything I say is from direct experience. I'm not presenting any theory. So I know, because I've done it, that to make that mistake of trivializing or dismissing this gift leads to unnecessary suffering, because here you've been presented with this jewel in your own direct experience. The light is on, and you are that light, and this is the direct revelation here and now, and it's happening. The mind might doubt, but it's happening. It can't be otherwise, as long as you just look sincerely. So that's 99+ percent of people will never have that revelation in this life, but you are having that revelation now. So it's a very rare gift, and just if you accept it and receive it, then and you recognize it for what it is, which is this rare gift. It's a life-giving gift. It's a gift that finally gives you life, because up to now, what we call life is, it hasn't been a life that you wanted to live. It was a life that you were constantly at war with. There was no life in that life. All the life was squeezed out of it. This life, finally, life is open. Life is here. Life is being received. Life is being lived. And there has to be a recognition, at least on some level, of the enormity and the preciousness and the beauty of that. So acknowledge that and don't dismiss it. But that's step one. Now, there is a second step, and the second step is, because we live in this world, because we express in this world, because that's and it's a great mystery. I don't understand it, but I can just describe it. And you can see it too. So you can see that you have this glimpse. You can recognize this alignment, this oneness with nature, that you are here, you are this aliveness, you are this vastness. And in this, everything is received, and there cannot be a problem. All is well. In this moment. But then you see, this is where step two comes in, because then what happens is we start to think, yeah, but what about my life? What about my relationships? What about my business? What about my home? What about my family? What about my body? What about all of this? And so mysteriously, I don't understand it, but mysteriously, we are our path, our way is to live in this world, to create this world. I mean, we are creating this world. Obviously, I mean, that's not like some esoteric thing. That's just obvious. We create this world. We don't have to get into what the, creating the particles and the whatever, but I mean, just in terms of our experience, our perception, our relationships, our culture, our businesses, the systems that we live with and operate, all of that clearly at a very obvious level is our creation, our co-creation. Okay, like we collectively are responsible for that, and we have an enormous potential there to co-create that consciously. We've been doing it unconsciously, and because what's been happening internally is this war, this struggle, this resistance, this going against nature, then it's no surprise to see that that's what's generated in our world. That's what we express, both individually and collectively. So for us, the second step, and you can, hopefully you can see what I'm pointing to. If you don't believe me, just keep looking and you'll see that you try as you might, the reality is you're not a renunciate. You're not living in a cave. You live in this world. And so your calling, like it or not, is to express this this realization in this world, to express that in your mind, in your body, in your home, in your family, in your relationships, in your businesses, in your organizations, in your community, etc. And so now I'd like to invite you to this peace inquiry. We've already done the first step, which is to reset to zero, which is to surrender all of the defense and pretense, and just to surrender to this vastness and aliveness that's here now, that carries us, that holds us, and that we are one with, to have the direct revelation and direct experience of that. And the second step now is to begin to consciously choose to cultivate this direct revelation of peace. So this here and now, in this surrender, in this alignment with nature, there's peace. There's no longer any struggle. There's no longer any problem. There's no fighting. There's no other. There's no warfare happening. There's a surrender to this oneness. There's a surrender of all of the falseness, and there's the direct revelation of this being held in oneness. So I call this true peace. You hopefully can recognize that that seems like a appropriate way to describe it. And you can notice that this true peace is expansive. It's beyond your way, beyond your notion of yourself, that in this true peace, there is no holding of any resentment or grudges. There's no holding of any kind of hatred or contempt for self or other, or in any way. That there's just a surrender and an acceptance. It's a profound, deep acceptance. It's an acceptance of self in all. It's an acceptance of the perfection of this moment. It's an acceptance of the totality as it is and the beauty of that. It's a true love. It's surrender to that true love, self-love, love that is expansive, inclusive, that is non-judgmental. So our calling is to cultivate that and bring that into expression. So this is step 2. So now we utilize our imagination to imagine the possibility of this true peace expressing in our minds, our bodies, our families, our relationships, our homes, our communities, our schools, our governments, among all people everywhere, among species, not just humans. So as we imagine that, what we should encounter is our objections. So this is where, and hopefully, I don't know about hopefully, but likely you encounter these objections right away, even when you just imagine this peace expressing in your body, in your mind. So just notice right there, what is the objection? Why is that not possible? Why do you believe that that couldn't be? And here we're not having judgment. We're not trying to argue with it. We're not trying to reason with it. We're not trying to be right or wrong. We're just noticing, just notice the objection. Why it is that couldn't be. And maybe there's an image, maybe there's some memory, maybe there's a thought, maybe there's just a general feeling, maybe a story, maybe all kinds of things that surface that are evidence for why that can't be. And just notice them. Don't have judgment about it. Don't argue with them. Don't get into a war over expressing peace. Instead, just allow and receive and accept, just okay. The same as we were doing a moment ago when we're just allowing ourselves to be aligned with nature. So all of the conditioning is resolved without judgment, without arguing, without grasping or defending, just allowing. So just allow and receive whatever this conditioning is that says, no, peace couldn't be here. Peace couldn't be manifest in my mind, not in my body, not in my family, not in my home, not in my community, for these reasons. And just, you don't have to go searching for the reasons. It's just whatever surfaces naturally. We're just allowing, we're provoking and allowing those conditioning, the conditioning that's already there. Just allow it. And then again, see if you can just let yourself surrender even more deeply and just, again, recognize this truth of peace, transcendent peace, peace that is non-judgmental, allowing, flowing, aligned with and as nature. It's just a surrender, just letting go. And then one more time, we'll use our imagination to imagine this possibility of true peace expressing in our bodies, minds, homes, families, communities, schools, workplaces, countries. And whatever objections may arise, again, just allow them. Don't go to war with them. Don't make them wrong. Don't defend them. Don't do anything other than just allow. Just see them innocently. Just allow them to surface and to be seen in this light of awareness without any other effort. Just allow that space for them to arise and be seen. And eventually they go, they dissolve, but you don't force that. You allow them, even if there's a sense of discomfort or resistance, you just allow. And then eventually, what happens is you start to notice perhaps that you actually can begin to envision this possibility of true peace expressing more fully in your life, in your family, in your community, in this world, just in a small way. It doesn't have to be big, but just again, one more time, invite that possibility in your imagination and see if the same objections seem to have the same solidity to them, or if there's an opening, uh, and an invitation that's been accepted to this possibility that maybe true peace really could express in ways that previously had been unknown, unimagined, unexplored. But now there's just a little bit of an opening for this possibility. Just see if that's maybe the case. And if you notice that, it's very wonderful. We don't have to have necessarily big changes, just small openings, because with these small openings collectively, peace is already made manifest. You see, if we can meet in these small openings, then small as they might be, there's an opening there. And in that opening, there's peace already expressed. Where before we were ready to go to war because you believed in one limitation and I believed in another limitation, now there's an opening. There's this possibility, and we both are open to that opening. So peace is there already. And we're a relatively small group, but I sincerely believe and know that collectively, as we continue to live this inquiry, that we are producing real change and that it has a very significant impact. And the more that we continue to live this truth in our lives, the more that it naturally begins to touch upon our families and our communities by example and energetically. We don't have to preach anything, but the next time somebody's looking around for somebody to validate this struggle and they see, hey, there's somebody. They're not preaching, they're not shouting it out from the hilltops, but they look awfully relaxed and they're going the opposite way. It just starts to open up something in them. So just by doing this, having the willingness to look for yourself, it starts to really make changes in this world. And so I'm enthusiastic and excited to see what those changes look like as we continue to inquire together collectively. So thank you for joining me, as always. And for those of you who are here live, we'll stay on for the Q&A. So I'll end this recording now.